All right, it's Super Centex over easy. We're coming to you Saturday morning. We all had places to go and places to drive last night, and
We're the 2024 edition of Saturday morning cartoons.
I love it. I used to
Yeah.
love Saturday morning cartoons.
Looney Tunes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and Saturday morning WWF wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, yeah. So we had a busy night last night. Um, and a good night for Central Texas. Last week I called it a bloodbath, but this week,
Was
uh,
the reverse.
well, yeah, we certainly did a lot better. Going into Saturday's one playoff game that's left, which is Teague and Hitchcock, which will be a tough one for Teague for sure. Hitchcock's third ranked in the state. Central Texas is 13-4. And several of y'all saw winning local teams. Zach did not.
I did not.
Um, but so let's get to Chad. You saw Gatesville move on. Um, Good win for the Hornets. And I mean, it looked like they kind of had it in control the whole way, or
Uh, well, they had a big play that gave them control. It was 7-7. Well, Rayshon Smith scored to make it 7-7, and then Garrett Keaton scored to go up 14-7. And so it's this back and forth type of game. Columbia is driving late in the second quarter, trying to tie it up at 14. And there's this play where the running back kind of gets hit and he loses the ball and it gets kicked a time or two. But eventually, Amos Phillips scoops it up and goes 72 yards for a touchdown. And it even looked like he was going to get caught. But as Coach Hunter put out, he had like pointed out, he had four guys running with him. And he goes and scores a touchdown. And now, I mean, this is the old thing where if it's your team, it especially hurts. You're going in to score and you give up a touchdown the other way, and all of a sudden you're two touchdowns down instead of about to be tied, right? And then that
mm,
that really hurts.
that's a big
But
swing.
I know, and then the end of the second quarter was kind of this crazy sequence of events because Columbia gets the ball back and marches down and does score with 48 seconds left to go in the half. And then they just kind of got nonchalant on the kickoff, and Grady Keaton returns it to the Columbia 34. So there's 28 seconds left, and Gatesville has the ball deep in or fairly deep in Columbia roughneck territory. Got to use I'm going to use the mascot from now on because it's such a good one. The Roughnecks of Columbia High School. By the way, Columbia is in West Columbia, Texas, but it's this three-town uh, community of West Columbia, Brazoria, and some other towns. So they just call it Columbia High School, right? So here's Gatesville in Columbia territory, the District of Columbia, if you will, the 34-yard line. And they throw one incomplete pass, and then Garrett Keaton just throws a great pass, and Jack Irwin goes up and gets it, touchdown with 20 seconds left in the half.
Mm.
And so it's like Columbia made some progress. It cut to 21-14, and then bam, big play. Gatesville's right back, and they're at 28-14. So in that sense, they were in control. Not to be overlooked, Logan Biggs intercepted a pass to end Columbia's ensuing drive, or we might have had even more fireworks in the last couple of minutes of the second quarter. The second half was less crazy. The big sort of defining moment. Columbia scores to make it a two touchdown game. It's at some point in the fourth quarter, and Gatesville just hands the ball to Rayshon Smith, and he carries on every play of the drive. And they eat up 4 minutes and score with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And Columbia, they were they weren't quite a slot T. They didn't feel like a slot T, but it was kind of that slot T strategy. They're running with a lot of different backs, a lot of different ways. So they didn't really have the makeup to erase the three touchdown deficit, especially with 4 minutes left.
Gotcha.
So yeah, the Hornets, man, and they were celebrating. I'm sitting over there with my camera, which is still pretty new, and the cheerleaders are throwing water everywhere. And I'm like, ladies, this is expensive equipment.
Chad getting cantankerous.
No, I didn't say I held it. I held my crotch into this back. But
There you go. Good. They get Sealy next, and of course, you and I were talking about that one last night.
Sealy
Originally,
knocked out Robinson.
yeah, originally, Coach Hunter mentioned that it might be in New Caney, but thankfully, because we were looking at the geography on that, going, why would they go to New Caney? That makes no
Mm-hmm.
sense. Instead, they're going to Bryan Merrill Green Stadium. Nice place.
Much better choice. Also, where Sealy beat Robinson. So I'm sure that's why to go out there.
Yeah, good vibes for Sealy there,
Mm-hmm.
but I would not put it past Gatesville to keep it going.
Well,
Um,
now, and I don't want to, bogart our time here, but we've got La Vega Belleville next week, right?
is that the next matchup for La Vega? I haven't uh looked that far. Let's see. That might be right. And obviously, at this point, you're getting good teams.
Okay, well, I'll talk while I'm looking this up, but I think we've got La Vega Belleville and Gatesville Sealy, and if our 12-4 AD two teams win, then it would be Gatesville La Vega rematch in the regional final, which would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
And I mean, heck, that's why we're here to get ahead of ourselves, right? So,
Sure, we can speculate.
mhm.
Daniel, so I think Chad mentioned it before on the podcast, but he saw Bremond earlier in the year, was very impressed. They looked pretty impressive last night against Lovelady too, right?
Yeah, they were. They pretty much were just controlling the whole game. They're controlling the clock, controlling the ball. Second half, they were up 12-0. Opening drive for Lovelady, though, Lovelady looked like they were going to do good. And so it's a big third down. They're going 3-and-out all game. Big third down. They get it on a long pass. We'll put them at the 5-yard line. But one of their offensive linemen got called for clipping. And so that backed him up 15 yards. And then on the next play, they threw an interception, which set up a field goal for Bremond to put him up 15-0. I don't know how the kicker made his one field goal, but missed every extra point. Um, so it's 21-0 going into the
He's
fourth.
just a diva, we want
Yeah,
3 points instead of one. He not can't be bothered with
yeah,
making 1 point.
yeah.
Hey, I think DJ is
So
waiting to hop on.
Yeah, I got her. I
And,
got her.
and while we're breaking for that, let me just make a correction. Silsby beat Belleville last night, which is a bit of an
Yeah, I
upset.
just I just pulled up our picks for next
Pairings.
week. When
Yeah.
was setting them up. So good morning, DJ.
Good morning. Sorry. I set an alarm and it didn't go off.
All right. Well, we're still talking anyway. Daniel was breaking down Bremond for us.
no, so
Nice.
fourth quarter, it's 21-0 with 6 minutes to go. Lovelady scores a 24-yard touchdown pass. Then onside kick, Bremond had it but just dropped it. Lovelady falls on it. Lovelady fans are just fired up at this point because this is the best they've played pretty much all game. And so they take it down. Uh, they get stops. Bremond gets stops on third down many times, but every third down there's a flag on a Bremond player, which just keeps the drive alive. So they get it on the 4. Lovelady scores with 3 minutes to go, tries another onside, doesn't get it. So, but they still got 3 timeouts. And so Bremond's marching down, and then they ended up scoring again. Lovelady couldn't answer, so they turned the ball over on downs. And Bremond kneels the ball out until 11 seconds to go. It's third down, and Tank Scott just runs it in for 25 yards for another touchdown to make it
Hank
30.
Scott's pretty good, isn't he?
Dude, I said it in my story, built like a tank.
Yeah.
Yep. I tell you, it's going to be a raging debate, I feel like, in a few weeks between Tank Scott and Rayshon Smith and Bryson Rowland for first team Super Centex running back and possibly even offensive player of the year.
For sure, for sure. Those are some pretty good dudes right there that you
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
rattled off. Bremond gets Mount Enterprise next. Mount Enterprise.
Hopefully,
Go ahead.
hopefully they hopefully they don't play at Madisonville ISD Stadium.
Now, hold on. Okay, so we had a hang up there last night, and we won't get into the details of it, but just like let's put our faith in Rusty Nail that we're gonna. If they go back there, then we'll get it right. Okay.
I will. I'll just lay some groundwork if that happens.
Mhm.
Yeah, Mount Enterprise knocked off Wortham, another one of our Central Texas teams last night, in a very close game. Um, I would think Bremond would probably be favored again. Obviously, the Tigers and Jeff Kosowski have it going there. Um, Zach, Fairfield had a good season, but it came to an end in Temple. So we were all surprised when Yoakum beat Troy. But clearly they have some explosiveness, don't they?
Man, I mean, clearly I'm covering. Clearly, this was a game that Levi Caraway was supposed to cover because it was a
Right.
blowout. But those guys, Trey Queller and Donovan Toussaint for Yoakum are just dynamic. They are patient. They are just fast and strong. And man, that Yoakum is just good. They can and I think Coach Bachtel was saying after the game that they were happy. They were trying to build something at Fairfield. They've made the playoffs 4 years in a row. This was the first year in that span that they've gotten past the first round.
Hmm.
So, they've got a lot of young players. They've got, seven, they've only have seven seniors. And so they've got a lot coming back. And so I think they're building something. And
How good is Cole Collins? Is he
really good? Yeah. They're not afraid to throw it, clearly.
right?
He had 192 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. But Yoakum scored on their first 9 possessions. And
Nice.
so it was, early on, Yoakum scored on their first 3, obviously missed an extra point, and Fairfield went for it on 4th and long from deep in their own territory and didn't get it. And that was in the second quarter. And that's kind of where things, that's where the game kind of ended. So, but Fairfield, they fought. They brought in a sophomore in the fourth quarter when the backups were in, and he ran for a 77-yard touchdown. So, I think the future is bright. Yes, it was a tough loss. It was a lopsided loss, but the future is bright. And if you want to nominate someone, like Cole Collins is a really good quarterback.
Yeah.
And I know that there's probably for Super Centex and all this, like he's probably going to be pushed down based on some other players or whatever, but shout out him. He's a really, really good punter.
He's got the stats for it.
I think he had like 3 punts of like 50 yards or more. It was so if you need him to nominate him for something else, shout out. He's a really
I think he was up there with our punters last year, and yeah, so I was aware of that, but clearly, I mean, he'll be in the running for quarterback too. I think just based on his numbers and playing for a good team. Chad, what were you saying?
Yeah, I feel compelled to jump in with a history lesson, not in a condescending way to Zach, but it just has to be said. A couple of things. Number one, Fairfield, past producer of NFL players. Okay. 2013, they made the state championship game in 3AD2. So, yeah, they're like maybe getting back to where they were at that point. The other thing, and this is more sentimental than anything, when you say Coach Bechtel, of course, John Bechtel, the son of the great Kent Bechtel, who was Midway's coach for a couple of decades in the 80s and 90s, maybe 25 years, actually.
Yeah, 25 years.
25 years. He was the AD and football coach when I was at Midway. Just a great person, miss him dearly. He passed away in the 2010s. But yeah, just couldn't help but jump in with those tidbits.
And
Chad,
Zach is gonna.
They're just good kids, Chad. They're just good kids. That's what Kent Bechtel would say.
Yep.
Zach is gonna.
We love John Bechtel. He does a great job at Fairfield, and
he's a nice dude, incredibly nice dude.
Yeah.
I was trying to say Zach is gonna get to watch a really great Fairfield product on the basketball court soon when UNLV comes to play Baylor on women's basketball.
Yeah,
Michaela Brockins is gonna be a Super Centex Athlete of the Year. I think she was 2-time Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Daughter of
And
Tony Brackens, who
her brother was on the team for football.
Jason Brackens,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Tony Brackens played for Texas and then for several NFL teams. I think the Jaguars being
Oh yeah,
one.
is in the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame.
So, and he also, I am friends with two people who were just smashed by Tony Brackens at some point in
Okay.
their lives. My buddy Hank Steen from TIG, who was quarterback for TIG in the mid '90s, and then if you go look it up on YouTube, look up Texas Tech kicker and Tony Brackens. My buddy Tony Rogers, for some reason, was running down the sideline with the ball, and Tony just wiped him out.
As you were supposed to do if you see a guy running with the ball, especially a skinny little kicker.
Tony, yeah.
And we should also mention Blake Brackens, current Fairfield volleyball basketball player, very good.
Mm-hmm.
McKenna's younger sister and Jason's older sister. Uh, yeah, so good year for Fairfield and John Bechtel. DJ, that brings us to you and the La Vega Pirates. You mentioned it in your story that Coach Hyde and the Pirates were not very happy with how they played the first time against West Orange Stark in terms of just the physical nature of the game. They felt like they got pushed around. That did not happen last night, correct?
No. And I was kind of stressed out in the first half because I was like, I hadn't seen La Vega at the beginning of the season when they were, still putting stuff together. I think the closest that, you know, I remember seeing them play this way was when they played Gatesville because, Gatesville is very methodical, very shove it down your throat slowly.
And I think Gatesville is sneaky physical too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but their defense was like amazing. In the first half especially. West Orange Dark was about to score at the end of the first quarter, and um, this kid just like throws it into double coverage right in like in between the 5 and the goal line, and Amir Gibson comes in and like snatches it, right, like dives for it for the interception. They didn't get a score out of that turnover. But then, later, literally 23 seconds left to play the first half, and they put together this lengthy drive that's capped off by a Courtney Parr, rushing touchdown. And, they did quite a bit of running. They tried throwing the ball here and there. And they got some good, plays out of that. But the O-line just was really physical in this game.
I tell you, when you look at La Vega's O-line, I mean, just as they're lining up before a play, you just go, dude. I mean,
yeah,
they're big.
And
they're big.
I think after when I saw Hyde really jump his team after a win over China Spring, I think a big part of his consternation at that point in time was that big group of offensive line wasn't doing what they thought they should be able to do.
Mm.
Yeah.
They're doing it now.
Yeah, they had a few false starts in the first half. I think that was more of, West Orange Chart kind of throwing them off a little bit. But, all week when I was talking to Coach Hyde after the last game, and, he finally called me back on Thursday in order to write my preview. And he was talking about just like doing the little things right. That's how they've been effective. It's just, lining up correctly and putting people in the spots that they need to be at. And then Jabari Thornton coming up with an interception and 2 kickoff return touchdowns for a combined 152 yards.
Playmaker there, baby. Playmaker.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually talking to Bryson Rowland after the game, and I asked him, like, what did you think about, Jabari Thornton's 2 touchdowns on special teams? And then he just starts yelling at Jabari to come over. And so then it turned into a Jabari Thornton interview. And, it was fun. Those kids are so fun to watch. I mean, they like to watch us. I know one of the O-line was going down.
I think
It was
Bryson may have a future in media,
Yeah, yeah,
probably,
which
yeah.
is
yeah.
so surprising. When he was a freshman, when he was our newcomer of the year, he was like one of those one word answer newcomers, you know.
But
So
Yeah.
I will say, I think I interviewed him as a sophomore, and he had come a long way. He was really good. So,
Yeah.
um,
Oh, I do have an update on their next game because Coach Hyde texted me
okay,
um
Billsby.
last yeah, there I first when I checked the bracket, for some reason it said it was they were playing on Thursday. They're not. They are playing on Friday against Silsbee at Planet Ford Stadium in Spring, Texas at 7 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Good to know. Silsby is the not that you guys care, but it's the alma mater of my stepdad, Doug Radford. The Silsby Tigers, very good in basketball, East Texas basketball power.
and since we've
Conley has
already
run into them a
since
lot
we've
of times.
excuse me, I'm sorry. Since we've already established that we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit this morning on purpose, right?
Right.
Uh, when you look at the Final Four in that region, it's La Vega, Silsbee, Sealy, and Gatesville,
Gatesville.
right? Yeah.
Hmm.
Now that La Vega's passed West Orange Start, they become the big time favorite to
Oh
win that.
yeah, they're the favorite for sure. And I mean, you called it, Chad. You said it a few weeks ago that you felt like they were a sleeper team for Jerry World, and um, here they've got it going clearly. So
Well, and they've got to keep it going, but Gatesville Sealy could be an awesome game. If Sealy comes into that game and gets a couple of big plays like they did against Robinson, because they've got a lot of the right pieces. You know, they've got speedy playmakers and they can be physical with people. That Sealy La Vega game could be a really really fun one to watch.
yeah, for
But
sure.
I think La
And
Vega would be the favorite in that
Region.
eventuality.
and if Gatesville beats Sealy, then that's just gonna set up a really good matchup between two teams that already know each other pretty well. So,
Wait, what
um,
would that be?
Talk
if
about
Gatesville beats
Oh
Sealy,
yeah. Gates, yeah. I follow you.
yeah, which you mentioned earlier, Chad. We could potentially see La Vega Gatesville. So,
That
uh,
would be fun too. The last time that Gatesville made it to the third round, they played a district opponent, which was China Spring.
mm.
So it would be somewhat ironic if Gatesville got that far along and ended up seeing a district opponent again, which you don't always do. So
But that would be the fourth round.
mhm.
right, the last time was in the third round. This would be in the fourth round,
Gotcha.
just
Uh,
to delineate that.
so real quick, because again, Zach and I still have to go to Houston today. Um,
I mean, it's 11 o'clock.
no, but we're leaving in 45 minutes.
Oh,
Uh,
are you really? Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So
You're on ride time, obviously.
ride time. That's correct. So I wrote up the roundup last night, so I do know a lot of these outcomes pretty well. As I mentioned at the start of the pod, uh, Central Texas did well last night, 13-4 so far, with Teague Hitchcock still to go. Um, Six man, uh, we won all our six-man games. Next week,
How about the Valor Knights?
Valor Knights won by so first of all, shout out DJ who had the
Yeah, I tee one up for DJ. Yeah.
best picking week of the season. I mean, in terms of her season, and beat Chad and I. Went undefeated on the six-man games. As Chad said, she had faith in Valor. She had faith in Iredell that Chad and I did not. I mean, not that we didn't have faith, but like we picked it the other way. Uh, yeah, Valor wins by a point. So after they scored 146 in their first playoff game, last night they won 79-78, and in overtime, and they had a winning 1 point conversion to win it. In six man, it's flipped. If you kick it, it's
Mhm.
2 points. If you run or pass it in, it's one. Because it's harder to kick in six man. Think about that. You have a holder and a kicker, and only four to block six. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, they got the winning 1 point conversion to win their game last night. That was a higher ranked team that they beat, gave them their first loss of the year. Next week they get the number one team in the TAPS 6-man Division 3 rankings, which is Wichita Falls Christian, something like that. But yeah, Valor, good job, Valor. DJ wrote about them earlier in the year. I mean, I think we've got to at least pour one out for the Mart Panthers. It's certainly weird to be going into the third round and not have Mart, as we were saying before we started recording. 7 straight years that they've been in the state semis at least. Obviously, they had a run there where they won 3 state championships in a row. They were in the state championship each of the last 2 years. It just wasn't Mart's year this year. I mean, and I think it's when 9-3 is a bad year, that says something about the standard, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like I was reading recently about the Yankees in the 1964 World Series against the St. Louis Cardinals. At that time, players would sign with the Yankees for a lesser money because they knew they would get the World Series bonus, right? That's kind of what it's been like in Mart.
Nice. Shout out Hamilton Bulldogs. Michael Haig covered that game for us last night. Hamilton keeps it going. School record for wins for Hamilton. They're now up to 12-0. They will play Kearns, and that game will be somewhere in Waco, so that's good. We'll get to see Hamilton again. We
need to shine that spotlight on the Hamilton Bulldogs because we don't get to see them very much. We don't hardly even know. I think they wear red and black, right?
Yes, Chad, they wear red. You did know that. Also, a red team is the Axel Longhorns, who are still going. Colton Horn, y'all had 6 touchdowns last night. Yeah.
Hey, what did
How
I
about
say
that
on the
Wildcat?
podcast on midweek, right?
Yeah, Colton Horn's playmaker for sure.
And throw him in there with Tank Scott and Rayshawn Smith and Bryson Rowland,
Marlin wins. They won pretty easily. Roderick Suiters had a big night. He had 2 touchdowns rushing, 2 touchdowns passing. Marlin wins 35-14. They get the Mason Punchers next. Mason mostly known for tennis, but they have a good football team too. So.
The great prognosticator Rod Adelot feels like Marlin might go far.
Okay, like it. And incidentally, we will have Abbott Aquila next week also. Rematch there. Those coaches were talking about it. They were thinking that there could be a rematch. There will be. That should be somewhere close to Waco, I would think. And Iredell keeps it going. Oglesby keeps it going. Oglesby scored over 100 points last night. I think it was 116. Yeah, you gotta love 6-man football. Live Oak. Before we leave, Live Oak. So they played their first 11-man playoff game last night, won pretty easily. They will be in the TAPS state semifinals next week.
Live Oak playing 11-man football on first.
Chad, you're kind of breaking up. What did you say?
I said it's their first season playing 11-man football, and they're playing on Thanksgiving week.
Yeah, that's good. For sure. All right, good stuff, y'all. We'll be back at it next week in a holiday week, but appreciate everybody for hopping on. See you later.